Hello, everyone. In my series of interviewing outstanding healers and herbalists, people who I respect and would like more people to know about them, and certainly I would like my students to know about them, I'm coming to a woman who was my student many years ago. And she worked with me in my clinic for how many years was it, Darlena?
I was there for three and a half years,
Three and a half years to 4 years. And she, like I'm proud to say, like all of my students, what they do is they take what I have to offer and then they run with it and they make it their own, and they create their own style and their own way of working. So because Darlena Louange, pronounce that correctly?
That's fine.
Well, you say it for us.
Well, the French way would be l'orange, but
Louange. That's I like that.
Yeah, you like that?
You like it?
It's nobody calls me that way. But
well, what do you want to be called?
Darlena, Darlena L'Orange is fine. It's much easier.
Darlena L'Orange. She has been a long time close friend of myself and Leslie and my whole family, for that matter, and we have her family as well. And I wanted to introduce her because she's took one little part of all of my teachings, which was about kitchery. And of course, I taught 5 elements also as a foundation in my teaching. And she developed that into something which I find to be very remarkable. I'm kind of titling this discussion "Kitchery for the Incurables" because that's what Darlena has been known for, and she's going to talk about how she actually utilizes it and brings it into her clinical experience. We're going to try to do this within an hour to an hour and a half. So I hope you hang in there because Darlena is certainly not going to be able to present the whole picture of what she's doing. But she does have a new book coming out, and she has her own books. What are the titles of your books, Darlena? Show them.
The first one that came out, 1998, Herbal Healing Secrets of the Orient, Simon Schuster.
Right.
Ancient Roots, Many Branches, that came out in 2002. Dr. Dolowich contributed to that, an MD,
right.
practitioner.
Right.
Yeah.
And she's made a specialty of like a great jazz improviser, riffing off the idea of using kitchery and herbs and the energetics of herbs to actually, dare I say it, cure cancer. This was news to me because I've treated cancer and even wrote a book called Treating Cancer with Herbs. And I have not personally achieved the kind of results that Darlena has using a very simple, well, I can't say it's simple because I looked at it myself and it looks like it's very hard to follow. You'd have to be a very dedicated patient to do this. But it looks like a system of treating incurable diseases like cancer that is available to everybody to do if you're really up for doing it. It's not like you're going to have to do a lot of enemas and you're going to have to do a lot of heroic kind of things to, escharotic salves and all that. No, it's just following a very strict diet for a considerable amount of time. And so I'm going to turn this over now to Darlena, and she and I are going to have a conversation about this. So Darlena, when did you first get the idea of using kitchery to cure cancer? And of course, we're going to talk about, we're not going to mention it, but she's cured all kinds of incurable diseases using kitchery. So when did you first get the idea to use kitchery for this?
In 1988, a very dear friend who was a bookkeeper in an organization where I worked had retired and moved to Oregon 5 years previously. And I got a call from her husband that told me she had colon cancer that had migrated to the liver. She'd been through multiple rounds of chemotherapy, surgery, radiation. Doctors told her, go home, write your will. And that's how he called me. And so I was desperate. I took the kitchery recipe and I add all kinds of things. This is true. And I sent it to him along with River of Life formula back in those days. Remember, I loved River of Life.
That's my version of a red clover formula.
Yeah. And Triphala, just a little bit. But so Claire, her husband, went out, got things, and the kitchery is not at all the kitchery that we know from Ayurveda, because I put in healthful nutrients. I put in seaweed. I put in kabocha squash, things that actually feed the system what it needs.
Right.
Yeah.
I think I have one of your recipes here.
Complicated.
Just to give our listeners an idea, kitchery is basically the basic thing in Ayurveda is a kind of a fasting regime where you're using a shelled mung beans and white rice, and you're cooking it in 14 parts water to 1 part of both the grains. You're cooking it a long time, and patients who go to Ayurvedic treatment are put on this diet as a cleansing while they go through a thing called panchkarma, which is a wide-ranging series of techniques that Ayurveda uses to cleanse the whole body. And it takes a few weeks to actually complete that. Well, we've all reinterpreted kitchery according to our own tastes and so forth over time. But Darlena has gone to a far greater extent. Her present kitchery recipe has the basic mung beans, ghee, and rice, but I believe you're using brown rice or forbidden black rice and brown basmati rice.
You got it.
And I'm not going to give you all the proportions here because this is going to take too long to give specific recipes here. But just to give you an idea that this is actually a whole food that she's creating, and it's not just little bits of rice and little bits of beans. It's a lot. But she's also adding black beans and mung beans. She has a quarter cup each of astragalus and codonopsis, onions, garlic, carrots, celery, yams or sweet potato. She likes kabocha squash, which she mentioned. 8 cups of bok choy. Now I know bok choy is in the cabbage family, cruciferae, and I always recommend my cancer patients to eat in favor of those kinds of greens because they are anti-cancer. And then 8 slices of fresh ginger, parsley, shiitake mushrooms, 2 cups of shiitake mushrooms. You can, and then there's a half a cup of cilantro, aramay seaweed, and then the standard kitchery spices, turmeric, and she's using 12 teaspoons here, by the way, not a little baby dose of turmeric.
I think that's probably a 60-cup recipe. There's a lot of food there.
Okay, and 10 teaspoons of coriander and 10 of cumin, and then salt to taste. So I'm not going to go into a great deal, but she pre-soaks her grains and rice for 12 to 18 hours. And the whole thing takes, I don't know, how long does it take to prepare this whole thing?
Well, first off, I want to emphasize the importance of soaking the whole grains and beans, the beans particularly, until you do not want them to sprout. You want them to begin the process. The moment you increase their protein by 76% during that little time space between when the sprout actually comes out. If the sprout comes out, you're back to carbohydrate. So it's very important. The smaller beans, it's usually about 12 hours, depending on summer or winter, how warm it is. I love the garbanzos, and those I usually soak 18, 20 hours. So there's different soak times for everything. You do not want it to actually sprout.
So again, we're getting into the rigors of her routine, which would itself maybe make people think, well, I'd rather die than do all this. And unfortunately, there are a lot of people who do, and that's what we're trying to address, because I've seen so many cancer patients and seen them, and I had one cure, so I'm not going to get into but one remarkable cure. But apart from that, I follow the principle of complementary medicine, having them work with their oncologist and myself doing acupuncture to relieve discomfort and also to help circulation of qi and blood. And then herbs to tonify the immune system. That's basically the approach that I use. But this is going beyond all that. It's very different. And maybe again, we're going to let Darlena take over here. But so go ahead, Darlene. So soaking the beans is really important.
Okay, we'll go back to, you asked me about what got me started, and I was telling you about Evelyn, the bookkeeper, and her husband called me from Oregon. And so I gave him the recipe. The doctors had told her, go home and write your will. We can't do any more surgery, anything. So you're going to die. That's it. She called me in 3 weeks after she started the kitchery and said, Darlena, today I have no swelling, my stomach's not bloated, and I was able to take out the trash. She continued on. She was 73 at the time. She lived another 12 years. And I've got a notebook here, and I've got some cards from her. One she says they were traveling all over the United States and seeing all the sights. That was at 80 years of age. Okay, well,
so this is a really good way to begin. So tell us just briefly like that a few other cases that come to mind.
Oh gosh, so many.
Capture our audience here.
Oh, okay. Well, you and I talked about my dearest friend in Argentina, Teresita. Should we go into that, Michael?
Sure, but just give her last name.
No, I won't give her last name.
All right.
Okay. So, Teresita, I moved to Argentina in 1972, and I lived down there till 77. Teresita was a lot like a twin sister. Loved her dearly. We had so many adventures together. But so when I had moved back to the States, of course, we stayed in contact. And the first thing that happened to her, she visited me probably in 2010, and she had rheumatoid arthritis. Okay. We got her back we got her started on some kitchery, and that helped. But then in 2012, she developed breast cancer. Uh-huh. And I actually flew down 3 times. I actually looked at my passport. I went down in like, it would have been September of 2012. In February of 2013, I was there for 6 weeks. And I went back down in January 2015, January 24th to February 26th. But the first thing I did when I got there, she had a good doctor. He was from Cornell, trained. But was the worst type of fastest growing breast cancer was they put her through chemo. That's what happened when the first time I was there. And I immediately started the kitchery with her.
Right.
Yeah. They said, you got 6 weeks. Okay, well, I don't accept that. I stayed 6 weeks with her then. We made kitchery. The wonderful thing about Argentina is you go just a block and they've got a fresh vegetable stand that people have picked out of their garden. So you've got the vegetables, the time of year, and they're wonderful. So it was easy. And Teresita loved the kitchery. It's very tasteful. It changes with the season. It changes with the problem. So when I went back, I went back every 6 months. She was doing much better. We changed the kitchery. My last trip was January 24th to February 26th, 2015. We talk on Zoom all the time. She's in perfect health. She was out riding a motorcycle the other day.
So that was a period. That was a period of how long? A year?
Oh, well,
The whole period.
usually with, like with Evelyn, who had the terrible, they told her to go home and write her will. In 3 weeks, she was able to get up. She had no more swelling.
Okay.
Yeah. And you say it's very strict, but once we get them at that stage where they're flat, obviously, so much better. You bring in whole grain granolas, perhaps sweetened with coconut sugar, some yogurt if it's indicated. Depends on body type. Fresh fruits of the season, not really high glycemic. I don't want anything too high glycemic, but so the diet becomes very easy. It's really not that hard. Kitchery 2 or 3 times a day. I mean, we want to keep that going for a year and a half, and then kitchery once a day forever.
So is the kitchery like a big bowl or just a small bowl, or?
Oh, well, it depends on how much they can take down, because sometimes I'd say a cup and a half, 2 cups, whatever they can get down. It's fine.
It's like essentially the whole meal.
Yeah.
Okay. And
for the first 2 or 3 weeks with somebody who's chronically, you can't even keep food down, as much as they can, as often as they can.
Do you have them include animal products?
No.
None at all.
The whole basis of all of this is the human cell is the same as one that was drenched in pre-oceanic ocean water. And all I'm trying to do is to get the most neutral, gentle diet in there. So the cells are happy. I'm an old Kansas farmer. I grew up watching the sprouts grow. And so it makes so much sense. You need to understand the soil, the person, and give them the nutrition that's actually suited for them. And miracles happen. Cancer is not a natural way of being. Once you establish this wonderful, it's somewhat alkaline, you'd have to admit, Michael, diet. The seaweed is very important. For years, in ancient Egypt, in Japan, seaweed has been used to reduce tumors. That's why it's in. I used to love the Kinshin root tablets. You can't get those anymore.
Yeah, I like those too.
For me, that seaweed balanced minerals, the way our body understands the human cell.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I usually give all my cancer patients seaweed to take as well.
Yeah.
And any other cases that you can conjure up just to whet our followers into?
Oh, well,
as you get into the details.
This is years ago, but my first book that came out, Herbal Healing Secrets of the Orient, 1998, they kept me pretty much, what they wanted was an herbal, but I was able to put in chapter 5 with some kitchery recipes. Okay. And I got a call from a man in New York about 3 months after it came out. He said, I have to tell you, thank you, you saved my life. I had pancreatic cancer. And I went home. They told me I was going to die in 6 weeks. I got your book. I made kitchery, he said. I ate it for about a week and I was feeling better. 3 months in, good heavens, I feel great. That man, every year at Christmas time would send me a box of Harry and David's fruit. So for about 12 or 14 years, I received a box, like a ritual for Christmas.
Now, so our Ayurvedic practitioners and friends, and including my students, don't confuse things too much. What Darlena means by kitchery is not what kitchery actually is.
May I say my experience with kitchery? I took you seriously. I went to Michael in 1983 with very large ovarian cysts, and my doctor Chamberlain said, we have to go in surgically. Well, I'm not very happy with surgery. And I said, I gotta figure this out. And I had read Michael's book, Way of Herbs, and so I looked in the phone book, and lo and behold, it's in Santa Cruz. So I ended up at Michael's office, and bless his heart, you gave me a kitchery recipe, Michael, and some herbs, and of course acupuncture. And in 6 weeks, when they did the ultrasound, the cysts were totally gone. They were very large. Dr. Chamberlain couldn't believe it. He actually wrote a letter, which I still have, acknowledging that it worked. Yeah, so that's where I got started on the kitchery binge.
I've seen so many patients and over the years. I didn't actually remember that. So thanks for bringing that up. I don't mind people thinking that I'm pretty good also.
No, Michael, you started the whole. It's your fault.
All right. Any other cases that you think we should mention?
Well, I just have so many.
Well, we talked about cancer, and she's treated breast cancer very successfully. I think you told me 8 or 9 cases of breast cancer. I just recently had a breast cancer patient. It was the saddest thing in the world. She was like 35 and a gloriously beautiful, vital woman who was very active in sports and so forth. And from my standpoint, when she came to me, she didn't really need much counseling and diet. She was very health conscious. However, I think she had a couple of little things. I think she had some sugary indulgences that she allowed herself. Now, that's for the average person, that doesn't necessarily cause cancer in everybody.
No.
But sugar is something that feeds cancer cells. And as I studied cancer, the fact of the matter is that people don't actually die of cancer; they die of wasting. In other words, what happens is the cancer takes up the best food at the table, and they use it to multiply and grow, and they're really happy every time you give them steak, which is actually got a lot of sugar in it also, and in a different form, and all the simple complex carbohydrates, no, the simple carbohydrates, and sugar. Sugar is glorious. Cancer just loves that stuff.
It does.
All diseases do. And so as that happens, it becomes an addictive cycle, because these cancer cells are saying, feed me that. No, I don't want that. This is what I want. No, I don't want to eat this brown rice. I don't want to eat this stuff. I want to have that sugar. And eventually the person gets thinner and thinner and starts wasting. And so wasting is actually what I've understood about it, the actual reason why people die. There's no nutrition going into their body at all, because the cancer cells are taking it all in. So the nutritional approach to cancer, from my point of view, that Darlena has evolved in her practice, seems very reasonable to me, but I just have never been that ruthless to actually put people on that kind of a thing.
Well, back in the day, Michael, I used to make up enormous batches of kitchery, and I'd send it home with patients, and they actually love the flavor of it. I've never had anybody complain, and it's really not that boring. And especially if you haven't been able to eat and you're sick as heck, it's wonderful. You start feeling better and they love it.
Just take one. And she came in with cancer. It was diagnosed medically, and like Therapeutic, for instance. Okay. And you decided to give her kitchery.
Yeah.
The kitchery you made is not the kitchery that we know. So you went through a process of deciding how she needed the kitchery. What was the basis of your deciding that?
Well, first you look at the body type of the person. You have to listen to them. Well, what's weak? Which organs need help? Which need strength? So my kitcheries are always thinking about the individual, and everybody is different, obviously.
Okay. So looking at the body type and deciding the organs, how do you do that? Are you talking about the physiological organs of medical science, or I understand you're very much involved with 5 elements and the organs of Chinese medicine.
Yeah.
Is that what you're
First, I've taken many courses in nutrition. Okay. So I'm always thinking in those terms. And if we just take one topic, for example, if you talk about oil, each oil is completely different and each serves a purpose. And so I'm taking into consideration each type of oil, each type of vegetable, everything, and how that adjusts to.
So in Teresita's case, what made you decide on on the oil that you gave her, the herbs that you put in the kitchery, the food that you put in the kitchery? What was
Well,
the basis of that?
she's basically a fire earth type.
Okay, which means what? I mean, what I'm saying is that people who are watching this don't necessarily know if we say fire earth type.
Well, your earth type are usually your nurturers. A spleen will give anything away. That's a spleen earth type. A stomach, once you feed them, they're happy to share. Is the 12 meridians, each of the, well, you know, colon, lung, colon, metal,
Right.
kidney, adrenals, urinary bladder. That's the water element. And so we're determining which of those are really weak. For example, if somebody has no energy, they're absolutely washed out. We need to support the kidneys. But also in knowing water, the kelp, that's where your seaweeds come in desperately.
Okay.
The body is approximately 70% water, and we're walking aquariums. And basically, what the cells in the human body love is pre-ice age oceanic water. That's what they evolved in. And if you bathe them in exactly, this wonderful nutrient filling, there's no room for cancer to grow. The cells get happy and the cancer goes away. It doesn't like it. You see what I mean? I hope that's making sense.
Well, I see what you mean. I just want to be sure that people who are watching us understand what you mean. So I think that in a nutshell, what Darlena is relating to when she's analyzing or looking at a person is she's looking at them from a perspective in Chinese medicine that's called the 5 elements. Is that correct?
5 elements, but more. It's even more detailed because we get down to 12 meridians.
12 meridians. Well.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is, in other words, these are the foundation concepts of traditional Chinese medicine, and that's how she's analyzing or assessing people when they come to them with these diseases.
You remember, Michael, I loved Ayurveda as well, so I go through all kinds of systems in my mind when somebody walks in.
Yeah, I do too, but for simplicity, we're going to say that that's what it is.
Okay.
And so then you're choosing foods based on their correspondence to those imbalances that five elements.
What is weak? What needs to be nourished? Exactly.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
And there's no. How about chicken broth? Use that in there?
No. I would not. For when we're treating cancer, for the first 3 to 6 weeks, I wouldn't bring animal protein in.
Okay.
That cancer loves animal protein.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so this should make a lot of vegetarians very happy. So in terms of herbs, you don't go in for these really complicated TCM anti-cancer herbs and things like that.
I think Hippocrates said, leave your drugs in the chemist's pot if you can heal your patient with food.
Right.
I'm very simplistic. There are a lot of beautiful herbs, but they're food grade, and those are the ones I will usually choose.
So which ones, can you mention a few just for the sake of?
I'm sorry, I can't hear you, Michael.
Can you mention a few of those herbs that you're using?
Well, the Codenopsis astragalus, for example, of course.
Codenopsis tonifies chi. Astragalus tonifies chi in the immune system too.
Yeah, I think of kelp or RMA dulse, those seaweeds, they are essential. I can't tell you.
Okay.
I use milk thistle. Patients who've been on chemotherapy, for me, milk thistle is my is my sister herb. How do you want to call it? That's what she is.
Right, I understand that.
And
the interesting thing about milk thistle, lots of people are using it, and I think Christopher Hobbs was one of the first people in the United States to popularize it here. Wrote a book of it, and I remember him going around in the fields in Santa Cruz and dealing with this very nasty herb to pick, milk thistle.
I used to pick it, yeah.
And then he put it into a one of those things that breaks up branches and so forth. He run through one of those machines, and the seeds would fall out, and that's how he gathered the seeds. So,
I used to use the pliers to open them.
but interestingly enough, milk thistle is not easy to. It's not. I don't understand it so much in terms, because we're talking about the seed. It's something that has to be processed. You can't just take the seed and texture it.
Yeah. Okay. One thing that I used to do is I would put it in the grinder. Yeah. And sprinkle it on salads.
And that wasn't really a part of the tradition. I don't think of using milk thistle in Europe. When they talked about milk thistle, they used the whole plant. There was never really specified using the seed.
Oh, well, I understood it was milk thistle seed. Well, I mean, all of the supplements.
That's what we're using in supplements now.
Yeah,
that was something that was discovered after the fact. But I could be wrong. But in other words, it wasn't really the kind of thing that a simpler in Europe could go out and pick milk thistle and say, I'm going to give you milk thistle, and you're going to get the same effect. Because a lot of people think they can just take milk thistle seed and throw it in some alcohol and make a tincture. You can't. You have to grind it up, and those seeds are hard.
Yeah.
So it takes a significant thing to do that.
Yeah.
So milk thistle is a really good choice, because you and I know that any complicated disease, the liver is sort of like the bad boy it's always going to be in the fray of causing of complicating things.
It's the body's laboratory. That's where everything takes place.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's the body's laboratory. It's a good way to put it. So I think we have a general idea of what you're doing in terms of what you're giving, and to get more specific details, you're going to have to get your book. The thing is that just to be clear about this interview that I'm doing and the way we practice, neither of us would ever advertise that we're curing cancer. Because if we did, it's against the law. And of all the things that you could say in the United States of America that's likely to bring the heat on you, is to say that you're curing cancer. But in fact, we're not. What we're doing is we're correcting nutritional imbalances and balancing organic imbalances based on an ancient system of traditional Chinese medicine. So in other words, we're basically improving people's overall health. That's the way of curing cancer. It's not to go after the disease. The disease is just a name, but and it is a symbol or a symptom of a severe health imbalance. And so what we do is we work to support the system's innate capacity to maintain and heal itself. And this is a very important discussion, because we're talking about the fact that one person who I'm very proud of and love very dearly has figured out how to use a very traditional diet that neither the Chinese have done or certainly don't advertise, nor the Japanese, nor any other Ayurvedic in India. None of them would say that we're going to use kitchery to cure cancer. They'll have cancer treatments, and maybe they work and maybe they don't. I've tried a lot of them, and yeah, they help, but the actual results that Darlena is saying she gets with it is not forthcoming in my experience of doing those things. It's just it helps people feel better and maybe live longer. So, but she's taken it to the next step. All right, that's all for now. Thank you again, Darlena. I know.
Thank you. It's been fun, Michael.
I really appreciate this. Thanks a lot, and I'm sure those who see it are going to really appreciate it too.
Much love to you and Leslie.